I wanted to make a quick video on something that I haven't talked much about, which is lure dyes and scents. Something that I think is useful in your fishing, not necessarily revolutionary like some people make it out to be. When it comes to scents and dyes, my primary use for these is not the scents. If you're looking at a list of importance of where something like a scent or a dye would fall in for me, it would be pretty close to the bottom. It would be like one of the last ditch things where I'm like, oh, let's see if we can get a couple more, squeeze out a couple more bites. If you're a tournament angler, you would understand that can be the difference between doing well in a tournament and doing poorly is just one extra bite. Or if you're fishing a very heavily pressured body of water, having something just a tiny bit different, like this bait's working and a lot of people are throwing it, but if you can just do something a little bit different, it'll get those fish that have already seen so many lures from all these other anglers to bite yours, which can be a huge difference maker. So I would say number one on importance is probably water depth of water that the fish are in, and what bait can effectively cover that depth of water. And I'd probably say next is profile, as far as if the fish are higher in the water column, you're gonna want something that looks more like a shad versus a craw, because a craw doesn't swim in the middle of the water column at 15 feet, over 40 feet of water. And then below that, I would probably say is color, like your entire color. And then you could put dyes and scents below that, and I'd put scents below dyes. The big thing for me when it comes to these is just that chartreuse. I like adding just a tiny bit to the tip of a lure. Perfect, this one's already dyed. But look how minute of a difference that is. If you can see the difference in the body, so that's the body color, and then you see those craws, or those claws on this lure. It's not even that much brighter. It's basically the same color. So all it does for me is make it blend a little bit more naturally. So if I have a jig like this with a little bit of chartreuse, and I put just a little bit of chartreuse dye on these, it's not completely changing the color. I've seen some people take these dyes and soak a lure in there for like 30 seconds. I'm sure that can be effective. If you're at a place where the water's super dirty and you're throwing something like a chatterbait like that where it's primarily chartreuse, you probably want that really bright chartreuse color. So you probably want to let it sit longer. I'm more of a fan when I use these of just taking whatever soft plastic I'm using. I literally barely dip it in there. I try and do it as minimal as possible. You'll kind of see that it wicks up your lure when you dip it in there, and also it's really easy to overdo it. You don't even have to try and get it in there very far, and all of a sudden you'll have the entire claw. But I just try and get a tiny bit in there, and I just do it for a second. And I think it's more of a confidence thing for me a lot of times than it is for the fish. But because it makes me feel a little bit better, whenever I throw this into a place, I'm a lot more confident. If there was a fish there, he would have bit it. So therefore, if I didn't get bit in that location, I can move on and feel confident that I presented the lure well, presented a lure that should have caught a fish, and I don't have to waste any more time fishing that area. So that's what I do with chartreuse a lot of times. When it comes to the orange, I like to do the orange tips. I had a tournament in high school on Pickwick. It was nationals and world finals on Pickwick, and I was wrecking them on a swing head with a biffle bug. And this is what I like about team tournaments. I think it's really interesting, really cool. So my high school fishing partner and me were both fishing this tournament, and I had a swing head with a biffle bug, and I was dyeing the tips. I don't have a biffle bug here, but I'll pull up a picture. So a biffle bug has like a beaver style tail in the middle, and then it has two claws, like two appendages that have a lot of action. I was dipping just those claws in this orange, and I caught 4-1 compared to my fishing partner. And he was not dyeing the tips until later in the day, and he did start catching them a little bit better. If you're fishing really heavily pressured bodies of water, anybody can go to the store and buy this. But if you customize this a little bit, like if everybody knows that right now they're on slow tapering points, pre-spawn, slow tapering points leading to the spawning pockets, and everybody's throwing a jig, or everybody's throwing whatever, some sort of craw or some sort of worm. If everybody's throwing the exact same bait, and it's going to be basically the exact same, because it may not be a Zoom super chunk, but everybody has a chunk, and it looks pretty similar. Whenever fish are just seeing the same profile over and over and over, and the same colors, everybody's got a green pumpkin, everybody's got a watermelon, everybody's got a black and blue. So like, when fish just get conditioned to that, I think just doing something a little different can make it look a lot more realistic and get you just a couple extra bites. It's not typically gonna fix all your problems when it comes to fishing. It's just gonna get you a few extra bites. So I do think it's important for anglers to have in their boat. One of the things I like on a jig like this It's just kind of mimicking that skirt. Like I said, all I'm trying to do with these dyes is make it look a little bit more natural, a little bit better pairing. Maybe I need to explain what natural means to me a little better. You're like, okay, I've never seen a crawfish that looks like that. All I mean is like making the entire package of what you're throwing look like it was made that way. Look like it was designed to be put together in that way. But I think in nature, you don't see hodgepodge things in nature, right? Typically, I'll say in freshwater situations, like a crawdad is built in a way that looks very uniform and it's very well camouflaged against the bottom. So I think something like this is like matching that in a way. It's obviously standing out because it has blue, but the pattern is consistent and uniform. And I think you see that a lot in nature, like you do in a bluegill or whatever. I can't, like a frog. You have like a bullfrog. It has a very consistent pattern. It's not like taking a green pumpkin. And when it comes to fishing, of course, all these rules can be broken. But to me, this would be an example of something that does not look uniform and natural. Now, could I do stuff to make this more natural? Sure. Like if this is the only trailer I had in the boat, but I had a green pumpkin jig and I had a little swim bait, and that's all I had, and I had to go catch fish on it. That's where the dyes and the paint pens come in. Because you could color up that skirt on the jig itself, and you could also color up your swim bait to get it to match the best you could. I'm not trying to be a salesman and just like, I don't get anything from this. I'm just telling you what I've had success with myself. It gives me a lot more confidence when I see this thing in the water. I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to this. Whenever you put a bait in the water, you're like, man, that looks good. Like even if it stands out in the water, you flip it to the bottom and you can still see it. Even if it contrasts with the bottom really well, so like it's obvious, it stands out really well. I think that's the best way I can sum it up. It's like we've all had those moments where we've rigged up a lure, you know, flipped it in a couple inches of water to see how it looked, and we're just like, that is the ticket. Like that's gonna catch one. That's gonna catch a big one. And that's what I think these dyes allow me to do. Every time I have a lure that's pretty good, I can put those dyes on it and take it up to that next level where I'm like, that's gonna get bit. You know, it boosts my confidence to that next level to be like, yep, that looks super natural. It looks like a normal package. Like it looks like it's uniform. It's all one thing. Now, when it comes to the scents, because as you guys probably know, these things are not just dyes. These are scents. These, in particular, the spikets smell like garlic. I don't think it matters. I don't think the scent matters. Maybe I'm crazy up a creek. I don't know. I don't think the scents matter. I've used Kickin' Bass. I've used these. I've used JJ's Magic. I've used a bunch of different scents, and I don't think the scents matter. I think, to me, the order of importance, like I listed earlier, like color and then dyes is right below that because it kind of goes with color. So when it comes to the scents, that's like dead last, man. I've seen experiments where people put like sunscreen on their hands and try and see if it affects fishing. I've never worried about washing my hands, like trying to keep baits smelling right, and maybe that's one of those areas where like I could learn. But as far as my fishing has gone up until this point, scents have not mattered to me. Like I've never experienced something where I'm like, man, I just can't get bit, and somebody's like, oh, well, I'm using this scent and that's why, and then I put that scent on and all of a sudden I'm getting bit. Like it just hasn't happened. If it has happened to you guys, I'd like to know that in the comments. That's kind of my thoughts on some dyes and some scents. I really appreciate you guys watching. The channel's been growing, and I thank you guys for all the support. If you are new here, don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and I'll have plenty more content coming out to you.